Okay, the City of Marine City Special Commission meeting for the budget workshop is called to order on Thursday, April 10th, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. We have a moment of silence to send our positive thoughts and prayers to those in our community that need our support. Okay, now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll get roll call, please.
Commissioner Bryson. Here. Commissioner Hendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Commissioner May. Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Roerg.
Here.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Here.
City Manager Reeves.
Here.
Okay, can I have a motion to excuse Commissioner May? And I believe Commissioner O'Brien was just running a little bit late. He should be here anytime.
So move. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Under approval of the agenda, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move. Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and now for public comment. This is a time for public comment. Any member of the public may address the City Commission on any topic. Please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and be heard. No commissioner, department head, or city staff will respond. The city manager will follow up on public comments as necessary. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please direct all comments to me as the meeting chairperson. Please refrain from the use of profanity, and please do not direct any comments to any other members of the public. And do we have anybody who'd like to speak? Okay. All right, if there's nobody who would like to speak, and then we'll move on to item 6 under new business, the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. And the city manager.
Thank you. All of you should have a revised budget packet, which now also includes a city manager budget preparation and process review. It's about 7 or 8 pages long that basically walks you step by step through each one of the areas that have significant changes. It does not go into an account where there's an area that it's just a rollover or there's no activity whatsoever. I just ignored those. I want to call your attention just to a couple things and tell you how I'd like to do this and then get your feedback. One, I just want to call out just a couple things that I talked to you all individually about together for the public. I want to highlight an item that is still not in the budget that I'd like to put in the budget. And as we walk through here, I'm going to talk to you about several items that are not in the budget that should be in the budget, but candidly, they're capital needs that should be funded, but the ability to pay for them right now is non-existent. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk towards the end on how we have some ideas on how we should go through this process in regards to how we would wrap up the city budget process and also the water and sewer rates. And I'm going to propose an idea to you that staff has kind of vetted between ourselves, and we think it's a good way to go about this process and give you ample time to make informed decisions. So if I'm going too fast, please slow me down, ask questions, throw something at me, and I'll be happy to dig deep into it. You've all had an opportunity. The budget was revised since you last talked to it. Very candidly, it'll be revised again after tonight with your changes or suggestions. There's things in there that I see right now that'll have to be pushed in there, and I would just finish this up to 3 o'clock. So it's a continual process. It's not concrete. It's a plan going forward. One of the things I noted is that there's a couple new departments, and you're going to see where we categorized all kinds of things under those separate departments. So as an example, IT needs were removed from pretty much all the department level, put to one department. We can control them. We can monitor equipment, Comcast costs, all that, instead of being assigned to a department where it's difficult to find amongst 4, 5, 6 different departments. It's all in one location, everything's there. equipment purchases, everything's there. We think that'll allow us to standardize and better track costs and equipment as well. You'll see several line items across the budget that are going to have higher trainings for both the department head and the deputy department head or clerk. That is upon my request and instruction to the department heads that we need to up our training to staff members, department heads, and others. Additionally, you'll see 2 boards at this point, and there'll be additional boards coming forward that have money put in there to facilitate training or matches for grants. Historical Commission, Planning Commission, we've never seemed to offer any type of specialized training, and they make very important decisions. Actually, some decisions they make could impact the city financially, certainly could be a liability concern. They need to have appropriate training. So you'll see that I funded those areas as well. Water and sewer funds are 2 distinct departments, so we're going to talk about that. Under the HR department, you'll see those are the main components that hold the defined pension system, as well as the retiree health care plan. I'm going to ask to install a $5,000 line in that budget under HR, and we struggle as to where to put it. Should we put it under the city manager's budget? Should I put it under special projects? We decided that HR would probably be the best bet. It's not in the budget yet. I would like to add it, and that is for employee incentive and appreciation. I've utilized this type of budgeting in past budgets I've done in 2 different locations, and sometimes we don't have the ability to recognize outstanding work by employees across the board. Yes, they get paid. Yes, we can say thank you, but it's awful nice if you can walk up and say, you saved the city a ton of money, or you did an outstanding job in this, or we really want to recognize what you've done in your service, and you were outstanding. Here's $500 stipend. The city thanks you, we appreciate it. And when you start spreading that across, it's an incentive for the other employees that perhaps may not be of the same like mind process or caliber in terms of work productivity, and they see these other people getting it, they say, well, why not me? Well, the difference is somebody recommended them, and they had outstanding service, and it's an incentive for others. You could have that too. Pick up your game, pick up the workforce. But it's a recognition program. I think it's very minimal. What I would probably do is limit it to $500 per person, and then I would have department heads and other people recommend candidates, and it would be upon the city manager's discretion. I've utilized it before, and I'll tell you, I had a lot of people all of a sudden said, you know what, I appreciate that, you recognize it, you know, I've been doing the work with 2 people, you saw that. And then I had other people come to me, what do I have to do to, you know, well, you gotta up your game, this is what your department head expects, this is what you gotta do, and it picks up that service level from everybody. So if you wanna consider that going forward, it's not in the budget yet. Budget wage schedule is in the budget now, in terms of what I indicated, a 4% for all the administrative staff. I did talk to you each about the collective bargaining units that still have contracts. It's the DPW Teamsters and the police officers. The department heads were given a 4% raise, and on top of that, a $1,000 stipend. On top of that base wage after the 4%, that is now included in the budget, so you can see what that looks like. I explained that in detail, why I thought that was necessary and fair. I did go into the lack of incentive sometimes to become a department head in terms of responsibility and workload and other things. And I think the raises that we're recommending are well within line and very reasonable in terms of what they're doing. Excuse me. Additionally, you'll see that the city goals are outlined, and we funded several city goals that required funding, so you'll see those sprinkled throughout the building, off the budget. Let's go right to the general fund. As I indicated before, we've taken a very conservative approach on revenues. Now, very candidly, we could go back through here and pump revenues. I could add 5,000 here, 10,000 here. I could say we're gonna have investment returns of X amount of dollars. I don't know that that's a wise decision, especially in the times we're operating in, but it's a false promise, because when those revenues don't come in, you're out of your budget. I'd rather be very conservative and then have revenues that come in that exceed what we planted. It's a conservative budget, but revenues are at a conservative level, and I would ask that we keep those. One of the things that we found, and I will stress, you folks, I think you already know how I feel, we've talked about it numerous times, the lack of capital planning is really hurting the budget process, not only through the general budget, but water and sewer funds across the city, our infrastructures. And when we get ready to talk about water and sewer, I'm going to talk about how important the capital planning piece is in setting water and sewer rates. I indicate that as of 3/31, the fund balance is 1.195 million and change. That does not include the T-bill for 1.3. That's our rainy day fund. So I don't include any of that in this budget discussion. I don't include any discussion about touching that one. Out of sight, out of mind. It's not there. That's break glass in case of real danger. Let's leave it alone. We have a budget that we can work with out of our current funding. I would like to see us build our revenue and our fund balance to 6 to 8 months of operating revenue. That's a solid cushion in terms of if things turn upside down. We have 6 to 8 months of operating revenue. We're not at that point right now. As we walk through the budget, you'll see we expect a Headley rollback in terms of rates. We're projecting revenues at $2,150,000 approximately. We note that the business license issues that we talked about still have to be worked out through our different committees. That's coming to you in May and June. The East China School District SRO contract is still an issue that is not included in the revenues. That discussion has not occurred yet. I'll be taking steps to move that along shortly. City Commission, your salaries have been changed according to the adjustment pursuant to board action. The only people that did not get a salary increase is the city manager or the seasonal employees. Everybody else has received a increase in terms of you'll see the city clerk, there's special increases including daily office needs. There's a significant increase in terms of a electronic designation project. I plan on rolling that across the city in each city department year after year. We're starting with the clerks. It was a good place to start. We have a lot of historical records from the clerks and bound books that are getting to the point where we're losing them. You've had a number of records here destroyed through flood, famine, missing, hidden, whatever the reasons are. They'll be digitized now and kept in a digital form, so those records will always be available, whereas now it's hit and miss. And then once we're done with the clerks, we'll go to police or DPW or treasurer. At this point, everything we're putting in now is electronic, but it's historical documents that we have to put in and maintain. A lot of these documents are mandated to hold for life. So that's the reason behind that. That's a $33,000 cost. We did talk to the state archives. Jason handled that, and they pushed us off to this company. This is who helps the state do theirs. They weren't interested in actually storing our documents. They prefer not to. They'd rather see us digitize.
What do they want done with the originals?
Well, we'll keep the originals. We'll talk about where we could store them if there's an off-site service or something we could use, especially the books that have historical value. We want to look at that. We want to get into this process, though, and get them done first to make sure we get through that. External arts, no additional changes. As you heard before from him, he expects that his costs should stabilize because we've been moving along in terms of the audit. We're doing well. Actuarial services, as for the pension, retiree health care, no change. So information technology, as you look under those budget lines, you'll see some increases. There's some minor equipment increases. That just covers the stuff that breaks, the keyboards, the cameras, the miscellaneous stuff, but there's not really a lot in there. There is a CIP item added there for a police department server, which is scheduled to be replaced in 2025. I have all the items that we were considering for CIP for you to look at in terms of quotes or bids or that type of things. So the numbers we have been verified through that process. Grant administration, there's a 5,000 place mark in there, whether we use it for training or the hiring or special grant. I think we've been doing quite well as we've been going along. Treasury and finance, that budget really hasn't increased much at all. The only real increase I see there is in the training for both the treasurer and the deputy treasurer. There is the part-time help. Mary Ellen is still a valuable piece. She's our direct tie to historical things. So when we can't find it, that's what we go to. And she'll tell us how it happened and where the records are usually. And then there's part-time help in the summer, helps over the holidays. That's when we get our staff vacations and things like that. Accessory equalization, 45% increase over the next 5 years. The first year is 35%. That's the county for assessing services. I have tried to find an additional assessor that I can contract with. I've called other communities to see if we could share an assessor. Just not out there. We're not out there. The ones that are in the business are retiring or they're handling multiple accounts. Right now, the county's the only game in town. They did raise other communities' amounts, not to the amount ours has, but they signed contracts earlier than we did. So the contract's at your next board meeting. It's a cost we're gonna have to endure until something changes in the market.
And it's still a 1 day a week person?
1 day a week person, 5 hours, and of course, all the back end, what they say is needed at the county. Elections, we don't, there's a ballot safe that is needed there. We don't expect an election, but there's an election in there. As you recall previously, and Jason's told you, if we do have a school election, that's where we think the issue may come from. They do reimburse us for the cost of the election. Building and grounds is an arm of the DPW budget. You'll see some wages, and as you look through the budget, like you look under city manager, all my wages aren't for city manager. You look at treasurer or clerk or DPW, all the wages aren't in that department. They're spread across water, sewer, building, grounds, parks and rec, each bit of our time, so it's not all in one area. That's how these budgets are constructed. You'll see a small amount in there for the Guide Center, adding that to our number of facilities we have to upgrade and operate. You'll see that it showed the $56,000 receive and reimbursement of the St. Clair County ARPA funds. That's just a place mark so you see where that was done. The attorney and counsel, this is probably one of the best deals that we're getting. Bob has agreed not to change his rate. Even though I've asked him to work twice as hard, he's still only charging the same rate, so I appreciate that. He's the only person that didn't want to change his rate. So kudos to Bob. Human resources, that's where we're putting the defined benefit plan, retiree healthcare plan, new employee screening, we pulled them out of the budgets, it's located there. Our insurance coverage is also in that budget line. Special projects, this is kind of our store all. When we can't figure out where it should go, and we check the chart of accounts and we go back and forth, this is where it's going. So there's where we put our special projects administrative salary, that's 1,040 hours a year at that wage. We also have lines in there for community shred day. There's a couple there. There's annual shortage in the cemetery fund, which is continuously supported out of the general fund. That's not a good idea. Very candidly, there's no answer for that right now. I don't see the cemetery fund turning around anytime soon. The opportunities to do something are limited unless we want to invest and build structures. We're not at that point that we have the ability to do that, so we're going to continue to fund the shortage of the general fund, but that's not a good way to go. That's in there as well. Police budget, again, very thin. You didn't see the SRO position as a revenue in there. The only thing that's really been added, he did ask for patrol rifles. We removed that and put that under the drug asset line, where he has funds in there that could cover the current budget and purchase them out of them, so we didn't have to ask for additional dollars for those. But we asked for a 2-year commitment to accreditation through the state of Michigan, Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. I think this program is sorely needed. It will help us in our process of making this a community-oriented police department that matches the best in the state. It'll update our policies, our procedures, And in terms of our, candidly, the physical nature of the building, there'll have to be some changes. And the chief has already started those in terms of firearm safety, evidence procurement locker, all kinds of different things that have standards and requirements, investigative protocols. All these policies will be brought in, and then there'll be outside assessors that come into that department and check. They're the ones that say, you did this, you didn't do this. And they assemble what's called proofs. You have to prove to them this information's done. And then they take phone calls from the community about the department. It's a whole process. I think we do nothing but upgrade our police department. And I think it's something that we should make that investment. It's important. Fire, there's an increase of 22%. There's an addition of what we believe will be a part-time employee, as well as for the new truck that was recently purchased. As everybody's aware, Marine City pays about 50% of the authority's costs, and that's pursuant to our cost per run. Inspections, code enforcement, we have a problem. One is that that's where all the salaries for the inspectors are at. And very candidly, one of the issues that we have is, and previous to me getting here, there was a contractual agreement with all the inspectors and the building officials where we pay an hourly fee plus 75% of permits, every permit. So as an example, a lot of these building projects start in 2022 and don't end until 2024 when the final occupancy or final permit is issued. And so we can't pack it into one budget year. It may transcend 2 or 3 budget cycles. And at that point, you may be putting out $70,000 or $80,000 worth of permits at 75%. This department is not sustainable there. I can go back and try to renegotiate that. I think that will be difficult. But it's something I'm researching that arena to find alternatives to this problem that I can at least get a 50-50 split of stuff, or at least get us more revenue out of this in terms of this cost. So as when you say, well, geez, we have this development, where's all the permit money going? That's what's going.
What's the sector standard for inspectors on permits here? 75% on one hand
Well,
sounds very high, but is that unusual?
That appears to be the standard that occurs in this area and surrounding townships, that the same building inspector and the same inspectors all do. So they pretty much kind of have a little group here that's kind of instituted all the same thing.
It was never like that before until we got this one here. We always took in all the fees and all the stuff, and basically that would pay. We had a full-time building inspector and code enforcement person, and it would pay for all that. And then this got changed, and we're losing big time. That money could go to paying how many, what is he in here, 2 days a week?
1 day a week.
One day.
I'm sorry, 2. A total of
2 half-days.
2.5 days.
2.5 days. And the amount of money that's going out is, we could use that to pay for a full-time if we could
it's
find
just-
one.
It's not sustainable
No.
in its current form, and it's difficult. It's almost like the assessor.
Yeah.
And Bill will tell you, it's hard to find those full-time inspectors that want to continue to be in this field and provide that service and deal with the public, and it's difficult to find. I've looked, I'm trying, but I'll just tell you that that's one of the problems in that budget line. You know, we earmarked $85,000, but very candidly, we look at the budget and say, you know, how do we come up with that number, and what will that be next year? What's the average over the last 3 years?
That's kind of how you pick through the number, because you just don't know with permits what's coming in.
Well, especially when we got that big apartment complex coming.
But with the revenue, it was kind of, you know, because I had a list of possible projects, and do we put them in this year or next year? I don't want to
Yeah.
We don't
shoot
know.
for the revenue to be high and then not come in.
Yeah.
So it's
We don't
kind
know.
of
Yeah.
you know,
We just got the final permits, and I paid out this year on the storage center on King Road.
Yeah,
And how many years is that?
yeah, a while.
So,
yeah.
Well, as far as I know, that just the one group that's getting getting that 70-80%, that had to do with the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical inspectors and not the building official.
You know, they all get it now.
No, yeah, and it's the, pardon me, but candidly, I don't know how to say it, it's the same person that's doing that started this rolling thing going, so.
Oh, so it's common in this area, but that's not the industry standard
It wasn't
across
before.
Michigan?
I've reached outside the area, and I'm talking to people outside the area, and it doesn't appear to be the same. I'm still doing work on it. I'd rather not go too in-depth.
No,
on
that's fine.
But
It's,
I am working on it.
it's a piece of work that I'm very unfamiliar with. Knowing that there's other standards or alternative models that are being used in communities in Michigan makes it sound possible to me that we can find an alternative.
75% of permit fees is, Bill, you got.
I always said it was one or the other. You don't get a salary and the 75%.
Well, I want to clarify, the hourly rate isn't charged when he's, out doing inspections, or it's when he's doing like plan review,
I see.
where there may not be like a permit assigned yet, so it's not getting like it's not like double paid, but he could do plan review for a project and it could take 5 hours and he'll get paid accordingly for when he does the plan review, but then when the permit gets final, it could be a year or two later, he would get 75% of that
Thank
permit
you.
fee. Yeah.
So we, in other communities, we do the 75%, but we limit the amount of hourly work.
I see.
So there's a cap, on hourly payments.
And with the 2 half-days, we're somewhat capped as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, but then you have the needs of the community. The people want to get projects done. They have a short window in Michigan to get stuff done, and he's only here 2 days. It frustrates the community then, so we're kind of caught. But we're working on it.
Yeah, I go to Cimboa, it's also district of building inspectors, and they kind of, a lot of the inspectors that I work with down there say, I've never heard of that before, so.
So DPW, you'll see the largest increase across multiple different accounts in the DPW, and that's only solely because they touch multiple different facilities and multiple different funds. So you're gonna see slight increases in terms of the DPW on small stuff. There's some additional tool needs. You'll see that we're going to fund directly out of the budget CIP needs. We're starting to plan for replacement of a backhoe and a John Deere plow spreader. We're also starting the process of a new vac truck. If we don't start now, it's not gonna happen. I can't wait for, the need will be there before we get the CIP plan and everything submitted. So we talked, I said, put it in the budget, we'll start the process, and when I get to the end, I'll explain how we're gonna go about it. Engineering is a crapshoot. I think we're gonna go over that budget line. I know we have some significant issues that require engineering work that go way over that, but I had to have a place mark. I'll have to just play with that throughout the year and get the best value I can, but that's not enough money for engineering. Street lighting, rubbish, watershed, safety programs, those are pretty contractual, actual costs of the services. We have no budgetary control over those programs. Planning commission, zoning, you'll see I put a little bit of money for training for those members. I don't think, I'm not aware if they've ever received any specific training offered by the city or signed up or been sent to training, but we're gonna try that. Recreation park facilities, you'll see some supply lines, all carried out of the DPW. You'll also include the porta potty contract and a CIP need for a new purchase of a zero-turn mower unit. Library, historical museum, some of those costs are reimbursed from the county. There's a small training grant match fund put in the historical commission so they can get some training or utilize it as a grant fund. We had to start somewhere with that. Major local streets, you'll see some employee wages and fringe carried throughout that budget line. Typically, we transfer a major portion of major streets to local streets. We plan on doing that. You'll see purchases, line item transfers or inter-fund transfers for CIP needs down the road. So as an example, the routine maintenance line has a transfer for the back truck in the future for $3,750. That's based upon the percentages of how much we take out of each fund. But you'll see that throughout the budget. You'll see drain storm sewers fund shows an interfund transfer of 30,000. That's the percentage that we take out of the budget. We're also going to use some of that local street money to mill and pave a few streets outside of the water main project, utilizing the past phase report addendum that was previously identified by you. We're moving forward in that. We had an engineer go over the streets we're proposing. The next step, we'll have him bring stuff back to me. I'll cost them out, and then we'll go back to the contractor and we'll see what we can accomplish at the same time we're doing the other job.
Those are not budgeted.
They're not budgeted though.
They're kind of like a CIP type
Yes.
situation.
Water and sewer funds. So we're right in the midst of the Michigan Rural Water Association Water and Sewer Study Fund. They do a very complex equation formula to determine water and sewer funds. We have given them everything that we have currently for them to work on this study. It's still in progress. They're about 75% completed. They cannot complete their studies and make any recommendations until they have all our loan documentation in, meaning all our loans outstanding, what we're paying, how many years they amortized out, which we can provide that, and the CIPs. The CIPs are figured in, as an example, your ready to serve costs. That's infrastructure. That capital needs in terms of that go into the water rate and the sewer rate structure. So he can give us a guess on the commodity side, meaning how much does a glass of water cost? If he can give us that, what should a unit of water, an REU cost, as a guesstimate at 75%, but he won't have it completed until he gets these other pieces. CIP is in progress at the wastewater treatment plant. We've already started on the water plant portion, but that project is moving along very slowly. Tariffs will be an issue. Long time ordering of equipment, some of it comes from overseas, some of it comes from the US. You order these filters, they're custom made for that building, you gotta tear off the side. They say July, now they're telling us October, November. Everything's up in the air still. It's a very fluid situation. Here's how I propose handling this. I believe that we'll have our CIP plans back from the water and wastewater treatment in June sometime, maybe the end of June. He will come here and do an in-depth presentation to the board commissioners on how to establish water and sewer rates. And he'll explain commodity, ready to serve, and he'll show us where our holes are. As an example, the water meter replacement. I've talked to you about that. We have to adopt a starting point. It's not in here, but we have to adopt a starting point because there's not enough money in the ready to serve fee to cover that on top of it. As you saw in the paperwork that Katie put together, many communities put that as a separate charge, okay? I think one was $11 or $10, one was $7.50, one was $3.50. They were kind of all over the board, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
For some reason in my mind, the figure $38,000 equated to us charging $350 the first year, or $32,000. It was very minimal. We couldn't buy a lot of meters at $32,000, but you build it up over time. What I would like to see us do as we work towards this project is allow them to come back after getting the things they need, work through the budget as we get into this process, make a determination if you want to have me cut the budget in terms of specific areas, services, staff, or otherwise to clear the deficit, or if you want to adopt the budget, use fund balance to carry you through, get a budget that is balanced budget. Do not raise the water and sewer rates or draw any attention to the water and sewer rates at the time of the budget adoption. Deal with the budget only. We'll get into the new fiscal year, have the meeting, go over the rates, give you a little bit of time, have another meeting with a public hearing, set new water, sewer rates, look at the ready to serve, look at all the costs, then we'll do a budget amendment back to this budget. The reason I want to do it this way is it gives you a little bit of time, and it'll give you data that I think you need in order to make informed decisions. I don't want you to be having to shoot from the hip and say, well, I looked at Carterville, or I looked at China, or I looked at East China, so use the data they supply you and separate the budget from this process. I believe, and I've confirmed with him, that we can sustain the water and sewer going through August. We're paying our bills in terms of commodity costs, okay? I can continue that process until we get to there to make long-term planning decisions on how we're gonna structure our future. In that, I also talked to each one of you about that $1.20 surcharge from 2004, I think it was, on a water bond. That's coming off in 2026. I talked about taking that $1.20 and instead of removing the charge from the water bills, continuing it, but applying it to water increases, ready to serve, whatever it would be, so people aren't paying any more. They don't have to take more out of their pocket, they continue to pay the same, and we take care of a greater percentage of what those costs may be. We'll figure it out, they'll be earmarked for those costs. So when a citizen comes up, you're not taking it away and say, oh, here's your $1.20 back over 6 months. Oh, by the way, now we gotta raise you next month, $12, because we took the $1.20 back. It's seamless, do it right in front of, explain this to the citizens, our whole town halls, explaining what we're gonna do. This is in order to try to stabilize our water and sewer rates. He'll plug that information into his study, and then he'll be able to tell us, okay, maybe he'll say, yeah, your water rates are pretty good. You're ready to serve a little bit here. Sewer, you got a problem. So you pump this up a little bit. This here you can get through 5 years maybe. Or he'll give you a 3, 5, 10-year outlook on how you got to approach this issue. So the citizens aren't hit all at once with a massive water increase or a massive sewer increase. And we have an opportunity to kind of level the playing field and really see where we're at in terms of commodity costs and ready to serve costs and other infrastructure costs. Because very candidly, our infrastructure costs is what's going to drive the bus on water and sewer rates. I will tell you that right now. I've seen the projections, we've looked at projections, where they're at 75%. I'm okay with that. I understand it. It's not as bad as I thought. When I know what I have in terms of infrastructure needs and I apply that against it, it's ugly. Because there has been no planning, no past attention to how do we take care of, stuff under the ground, stuff above the ground, the wastewater treatment, none of that's been done. And, we're doing it at budget time or out of fund balance. As an emergency comes, that's how we're approaching it.
It's just been like a yearly plan
Yearly,
instead
yeah.
of a long-term plan.
So separate the budget from water and sewer, carry it through, adopt a budget. We get that piece done. Remember, budgets are a plan. They're not set in stone. Then we go back, look at the water sewer rates, pick that piece apart, and then amend the budget. That's how I would like to see us approach this process. I think it makes the budget process easier. It gives you time to understand the issue. I explain this in detail in my narrative to you on how this would work. I do show what the sewer fund recap shows, the small balance. I show the deficit as well. You saw that. So as we work through this budget process and we get close, this is how I'd like you to approach it. And I'm looking for your feedback. What do you think? What do you think of that idea? What is your concerns? What would stop you from doing that? Or what would you suggest that we do instead of that? If you say, no, let's adopt the water and sewer at the same time the budget, I don't have the data to support that. And it would be a guess. And I would have to come out and say that. I cannot tell you with any certainty what these rates should be, and I would caution you in public that that's not the way to do that, but that would be your choice. In summary, The proposed budget allows for services to continue at the current levels. We've accounted for the current number of staff members and seasonal help. There are no ARPA funds to help us this year in specialized purchases. The need for well-thought-out CIP plans has never been more evident. We're going year by year with extraordinary little planning forward. We have incredibly significant aging infrastructure. Our general fund balance cannot sustain our operations as recommended over a 6 to 8 month period in the best of times. We have no availability to significantly meet any match or any grants that we may be awarded. So if we get one of these grants, we don't have a match. We would need to utilize other grant resources to assist in getting our match requirements. We do not appear currently to score high enough on our ITA for the 10 million wastewater CIP. I've looked at it, I've talked to the people. We're about 25 points too low. What would push us over the board is if we would have gotten, if we actually handled the violation that we had. If we hadn't handled it, it went to an ACO, that would have gave us another 25 points. That's irresponsible. You fix what they're rewarding you for doing nothing by giving you more money, but we took care of the issues, so now we're point short. I'd rather be point short in doing it the right way versus letting you go to that point. We've made applications for an MEDC RAP grant for $2.1 million and several congressionally directed funding requests for a variety of different programs, including multiple infrastructure and wastewater treatment issues. Senator Peters' office sent me an update this week asking us additional questions about our infrastructure, our wastewater, and some of the issues we're having, and what's the minimum funding level that we could start that project with. I felt good about that. So we supplied that information. We thought it was a $10 million project, $8.5 million project wide. The minimum we could take is $1.5 million just to kind of start the project. So I'm hoping for something between 5 and 8 million, if that's possible. We'll have to have discussions regarding service levels, service providers, staffing, amongst others. We'll need to be discussing moving forward. The idea of asking for a public safety millage for police and fire services, I know that's been talked about or done in the past. The only way I ever believe anything like that is successful is, first of all, you have to have responsive services on both ends, which I think we can accommodate. What people get upset about, and rightly so, is that they look at it as it's a money swap. And if you take the money out of the general fund budget for both those services, and I'll just say, let's say it was $2 million, it's not. It was $2 million, then you have to earmark the money that was in the general fund that would have went for those services, specifically restricted for use of water and sewer infrastructure or streets. So people know you're not doing, money change in the temple. You just look at this here, look over there, and then you're spending money on other things that you want, or salaries or whatever. They want to see something used for the money, so you earmark it directly for infrastructure, earmark it directly for water and sewer fund rates, or whatever it may be. But it is an additional millage. So that's something to think about. No one wants to pay more taxes. I totally understand that. However, our funding is declining. The cost of services continue to rise. The city has done an excellent job, in my opinion, but we have not planned accordingly for the placement of the infrastructure both above and below ground. And the time to have those discussions is now. There is no more kicking the can down the road. We are at that point. Ready to roll? Okay, Jack, any questions on that? Comments, criticisms? Section 1, general fund recap. You'll notice in red, ending balance is now negative $290,059. Note the changes from last fiscal year. We went through a lot of those previously. I just highlighted a number of them, including the contractual increases, fire 22%, assessor 35%, the transfer out for the cemetery shortage of $26,000. I'll note at the bottom the capital allocation purchases for the residents, $15,000 to save for a backhoe using fund balance, $20,000 serve at the PD using fund balance, $24,000 to purchase a John Deere with plow and spreader using fund balance, $14,000 to purchase a new mower for the DPW using fund balance. That is not the way to fund those type of purchases. And I think you all know that, that's where we're at. So those are built in the budget. I supplied you with the second page, which is what we will include in the upcoming policy procedures as our wage schedule going forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that, but I think I covered that in my narrative. The numbers are all built in there now in terms of the things I talked about with the 4% increase and the other items. And I'm willing to or answer any questions on that. Okay, next one is your roll through, shows the percentages of how we divide up for the different offices. As you look where it goes, those are the line items where it goes. So as an example, we looked at, let's just do the administrative assistant. You'll see there's 3 line items and her time is pretty much what she does, utilities. So they're gonna be divided between water, sewer, streets, right, those type of areas. If you look at the typical DPW worker though, you see there's 5 and 6 some different kind of lines where his salary or his work is spread amongst those different line items. I did tell you previously, when I started the budget with Katie, I thought she was gonna kill me. I had her back out all the employees out of the water sewer so I could see what it looked like and see if we could give you some help in terms of setting rates. That sunk the general fund, like $800,000 to $1 million under. I said, Kate, put them all back. Then I said, all right, let's see if we can mess with the percentages now, maybe kind of tinker with it. When we looked at the percentages, they're actually pretty accurate. I don't know that we would change a lot of anything that's there. You know, on any given day, it's difficult for us to measure exactly.
It's a guide. This
Yeah,
is really
it's a
just a
guide.
guide, you know.
Whether a
truly.
DPW guy's working on the streets or in the water
Yeah.
plant, I mean, it's a guide.
Yeah.
So if you flip over to the next page, you see the capital improvement spreads and where they're coming from. I spoke to that earlier. Flip to the next page, you'll see the balance sheet for the city that we utilize as of year-to-date 3/31/2025. Katie, you want to walk through this and explain where you're at?
Yeah, so you guys do get these monthly. I don't know how much you look at them, but the first section is your assets. That's pretty much your cash or anything that are receivable you would guarantee to be getting or think you were going to be getting. So we have our cash line, and then some drawers, and then our investments that you talked about, the T-bills at 1.3. There's a negative amount in there for delinquent taxes. That's the amount we're waiting on, you know. So when we do taxes, whatever we don't collect, that difference does get paid to us from the county. We do get that money through state, goes through the county and to us, but it takes some time to get it, so it sits there as a negative. Some receivables, and then the lease receivables are the 3 cell towers we have in town that were paid for. There's 6 line items for lease receivable. You have to separate them out by less than a year receivable and greater than a year receivable. That's why there's 6. There's 3 of them each year or more. And then the due to, due froms are just, you know, everyday sort of accounting things. If I pull this at any given time, it could change throughout the day, depending on what entries we're doing throughout the day. So that's the assets. Liabilities, same thing, accounts payable, any deferred revenue gets subtracted out, and then the daily operating due to, due froms. And then your fund equity at the bottom is really important. Unearned revenue is revenue we received, it's been allocated, but you can't have revenue over multiple. So if you receive money like from a grant, example would be ARPA in 1 year, we can't count that as revenue every year until it's gone. So you throw it in a place marker here until it's gone and use it as you spend. So there's a couple of things in there. The county Parks and Rec millage goes in there. The ARPA was in there. Most of this money is gone and used. It'll be gone by the end of the year. The deferred inflow, again, is those, any sort of receivables like the leases. And then we've had some fundraisers where the money is sitting there. I actually told Aaron this year, if you need to get anything for the beach, let me know. We can use some of those restricted funds for the beach fundraisers. The road tax millage, that comes from the county. And then any restricted grant funds, those funds can only be used for those projects, so it's restricted and set there. So when you look at our fund balance, the bottom line, about 2.69 million, most of that is cash. You know, the cash up top. So we don't have a huge fund balance per se, or,
No.
you know, a lot of our assets are really our buildings
Yeah.
in what we own. So, that's just for the general fund. There's one of these.
So we're not sitting on that, and that's some of the money that we're talking about, that once we get through the budget process, there's too much going on right now. We're gonna start investing in the Michigan class in order to earn that interest and not get overused. So that's some of the money that she'll look at and say, okay, hey, I'm gonna earmark X, Y, and Z, and she'll know as she looks at this on a daily basis what she needs to do.
Yep.
So you flip it over, first report you see is property tax. Katie, tell them what you
Yeah,
learned
so
about
these are the
property tax and what you foresee.
Yeah, so these are the revenues running through property taxes, and you've heard this through auto presentation. That's where we get most of our revenues from. This year, there will be another Headley rollback. We had one last year. So typically, most people might not know this, or some might. You divide your taxable value by 1,000, and that number gets multiplied by your millage rate, and that's what you end up paying in operating, for city operating. Well, when prices of homes are going up and those values are going up, the Headley law typically reduces the millage rate to account for that, so that you're not getting hit with a high taxable value and tax rate at the same time. So last year there was a Headley rollback. I did talk to Justin at the county, and we are probably having another one. So instead of doing our multiplier from last year's tax rate at 1.0, we would actually multiply it at 0.98, so it reduces our tax rate to 15.2547. So you're actually paying less
Yeah.
taxes
We're taking in
last
less
year.
taxes.
Yeah, you're actually paying less taxes than you did the year before based on rate, but because your value has gone up, you might pay more. But the city actually isn't like going like this in collection. We're pretty even, so. We're expecting that. So our biggest revenue, we will have more revenue in property taxes as long as taxable values stay, where we predict them to be. Our next biggest, all these revenues are pretty small. We still get use tax distribution from the state, small county road millage. Building permit fees I have in at 105,000. He talked about that though. Those really aren't revenues we keep. So you'll see them in and then going right out on the expense side. The next one is sales tax and CBT payments. We get that from the state based on, what's been purchased here, things happening in town. I think it's important to note this. People often wonder why, what's important about getting business in your town? Why would you want to attract more stores, more restaurants? This is the line item that gets impacted by that. The more people in your town spending money, the more money we get kicked back from the state on our sales tax. And this is where you would see that. Yeah, so that's an important line. Liquor licenses, we only have so many a year, so that's, you can only get so much from that. The rec village comes from the county. Again, that's just a set number based on population, and they spread it amongst the county. The next page, you'll see the high number for refuse. We will get in about 345,000. That's the refuse line you pay on your taxes for that service. This money, again, goes right back out. So there's no saving on that. We collect pretty much what we pay for MTerra, and that's a contractual thing. So the revenue's based on the contract.
Do you know when that contract's up off the top of your head?
I think next year. There was a contract, and then there was an extension for about 3 years on the contract from what I can see. And this is I believe the last year on that extension. So we'll have to look at that. You'll see the lease towers in there, about 33,000 we receive on that. Investment gains and losses, we went pretty low on that. You can't predict the market or what's gonna happen, so even though you can't predict it, I do feel like we're not gonna earn what we're projected to earn this year, based on the economy and the way things are going. I mean, we just, I don't have a, you know, a magic ball, but. And then the next page, again, pretty, with all insurance premium contributions, those are insurance co-pays that retirees and employees pay for their insurance, or premiums. And then the transfer in of 76,000, that is to cover those capital costs. So that's coming from fund balance. The last three lines were lines that were input back in probably '22, and we don't normally assign revenues to actual departments. So once 22, 23 activity falls off this, those will be gone.
And you're gonna see that throughout the budget. There's a couple like that, where we're just waiting for them to fall off. We're not funding anything here, they'll fall off.
Yep. So that's it. for
Thanks,
revenue.
Katie. Any questions in regards to revenues? Okay, we're gonna start rolling here.
Yep.
City commissions, the first one up. As I indicated, all of this year, in response, the budget went up a little bit in terms of salaries. City manager, again, not a whole lot there. If you had questions, please stop me. City clerk, I went through the issues in my opening thing. If you have any questions in regards to what he has in his budget, I have them here. The biggest piece is that project. We have to start somewhere, guys, and this is the time. Let's start with the clerks, let's get through it, let him have, see what it's all about, the issues of it, and then we'll know how to model the next 3 or 4 different departments, but this is the way to go going forward. Jason, anything else you want to comment on in regards to your budget?
The only other thing, the contractual services there too, we kind of left that where it was with the need for the ordinance review. The supplements that are printed through American Legal Publishing are rather costly. So that, and then the publishing line item as well, you see a rather large increase in that. Publishing costs in the newspaper are also increasing with everything else. So if we're publishing those ordinances, it's gonna cost a little more.
We're hoping someone in the future newspapers are getting to be a dying breed. Another way to publish ordinances and stuff like that, because it's really expensive. And then what is an actual paper in circulation that, you know, people actually could find stuff in?
Who actually sees it?
And then how many ordinances do we get through? Did we run out of money? This is the crapshoot. We threw some money in there, we're not sure where it's gonna be at.
If I can, Bob, are your other communities that you're a lawyer for do anything different, or are they looking at any solutions to this either yet?
No, it's a problem because the way the law is written.
Right.
You have to post things in the newspaper of general circulation for your community. They haven't changed that language. I mean, you know, right now I'm working on demolishing the Detroit news plants, so that tells you where newspapers are going. So, no, we haven't changed the law. We're still bound by.
I'm so surprised no one has brought that.
It needs to happen.
Yeah, we still have to select our newspaper, circulation, and use it. As of
The next thing is external audit, that's professional services, that's not really changing. I think that's going to continue to go down as we get better. Actuarial services, same thing. Information technology, the new department that we talked about. Already went over the things that were inside there. If you have any questions on that, we'd be happy to answer that. I think this will make it much more easier for us to track things.
A lot of these costs we've had, they've just been spread out, and you can't see the total real well.
Yeah.
You know, I can see them because I have a system there, I can log in and see them, but for you to look at them, it's really
Yeah.
hard to see,
Yeah, where they're at.
Yeah.
you know, what
And
it
we're-
actually costs.
We're finding we're paying something for Comcast in this department, they're getting this service, another department's paying a different rate. Why don't we control it all under one rate? So that's been taken care of. Grant administration, we do $5,000 place mark in there. Treasurer finance, again, I went through this. The main changes here in terms of training, I really think that's important and critical as we go forward. So we set, you go through that. Assess equalization, I think I've talked enough about that. You see the increase there. Elections, as I indicated, the only thing we would see is it comes out of the school district. We kind of hope that doesn't happen, but you just can't tell. So you gotta fund something there. Everything else is in terms of equipment or things that we may need or need to take care of.
And we didn't put anything on the revenue side, because you
Yeah.
just don't know. If they do an election late in the year, we may not get the revenue until the next fiscal year.
And then the revenue in, it doesn't come in.
Yeah.
Buildings and grounds, that's where you start to see some items that are changes, as you will. You're seeing a lot of things that were moved to IT. So those little highlighted areas are where Katie has made notes and changes to help you understand what we're doing there. Buildings and grounds, you're also seeing a couple things that, in terms of costs, like Knox boxes or those type of outlays from ARPA. You'll see some of the funds for ARPA. That's all been taken care of, it's all done. There's nothing for 2025. Attorney, as indicated, that's a very reasonable amount. Human resources, I talked to you about that. That Plunkett Cooney will drop off. That's one of those things we talked about, that'll end up going away. I don't think there's really anything in there of any particular. You see the insurances, yeah.
We can't control that cost. That's another cost that just keeps going up that you just cannot control.
So one of the things we're actually waiting on is we bid out our employee and retiree healthcare costs, and they haven't really got back to us, have they?
Our broker.
Broker.
We have like a broker who basically negotiates our costs with Blue Cross Blue Shield or the Standard in this case. We have our Vision, and we don't know where it's gonna stand. We don't know if we're gonna get a better, but we did send stuff to three different companies, and also told the current one, can you sharpen your pencils a little bit? What do you have to offer? Our issue is, and we've talked about this before, we don't have a large pool of employees that give us negotiating power with our prices. So, like Blue Cross will look at ours and go,
And they won't allow us to match pools or form pools, they don't allow it.
Yeah, they don't allow it. So moving brokers may not necessarily reduce our cost at all. I think it's gonna be more of a matter of if we get more service from them for the employees, for the retirees, and for like staff. Really, what we get for our money is kind of.
We assume that Blue Cross costs X between each broker. Does it come down to the service level?
Right.
Then we'll look at that, but just so you know, we're trying. We're out bidding this, they're out, and it'll be what it'll be. There's nothing, we don't have the ability to influence that.
Right.
Special projects, I think I went through that. You'll see a couple of things in there in terms of community events. I think that's important. I encourage us to continue that. Police, I went through that. I think there's not a whole lot there. I'm now at fire. That's pretty self-explanatory. Inspections, code enforcement, building clerk, code enforcement officers, supplies. I went over this and we discussed this. This is the line down there at the bottom with the contractual services that I'm working on. And it's not in terms of the contractor, it's the split that makes it difficult to handle this. I mean, we could get some more, even if I broke even on it, you know what I mean? 50-50 would be something better than where I'm at now. So, Department of Public Works, this is probably where the vast majority of change you're going to get. You see a little bit for shop tools, that's an ongoing process. Aaron actually wants a chair that has got a bottom on it. And maybe a file cabinet that closes, I don't know.
They
why
are
it's
in need
that
of
here.
some storage
So,
cabinets and
I
some
think we'll send those
updated
back to the
printers.
scrapyard. Yeah, we really increased the training. It's important to me that we get people trained correctly and they get licensed correctly.
Yeah.
It's required qualifications for the positions, we should hold those. And at the bottom there, I want to explain what's going on. So you'll see the $185K for the dump, $161 from cap fund. Then you'll see the new John Deere plow and spreader. Kate, explain what we're doing now.
Yeah, so the blue line under the 101-441-981, there isn't anything new requested that year. That's just a note for this year. There were some funds in the capital fund for a truck. We purchased that truck, so it'll move out. And then the equipment, the $24,000 for this is the general funds portion of that purchase. It's about $60,000, I believe. We put it on, and then same thing for the backhoe. The $15,000 is just the general funds portion. We're gonna save $75,000 for 2 years. This is just this year's general funds portion that we actually put into the capital fund for savings, and you'll see it in the miscellaneous. We've always had a capital fund, it's just kind of sat there with nothing in it or a little
You're
bit.
really being nice.
Yeah, you know, so these literally aren't like, it isn't going out somewhere, it's just being moved from here in basically a saving spot that is allocated specifically for these purchases. So we can't, I mean, we could say, shoot, we're not gonna get a vac truck, but we need this, and we could move it, but that's not the goal. The goal is to project what kind of tools and equipment we need and to save for those specific items. So then in 2 years when we go to buy it, it's not going, where do we get this money from? It's already saved.
Yeah.
So let me go on top of that. So if you come back to me and say, cut the budget, we can cut the budget. I know where I would cut the budget. We can find $150,000. But I'm not gonna get that backhoe in 2 years. It may be 5 years. Now, if it don't last for 5 years, we got a problem. Or the value I get out of it is gone. Or it breaks down and you have maintenance issues, it's gone. So what you end up doing, you say, okay, I'll take 10,000 for this, I'll take 20,000 for the vac truck. The problem is the vac truck prices keep going up. So I bump it out, instead of 3 years I'm gonna buy it, I bump it out to 4.5 or 5. And then I hope the one I got hangs on. That's the wrong thing to do, because you're always chasing yourself. You're always holding on, thinking that you can rob Peter to pay Paul, and you can't catch up.
Do they require you to order ahead of time? Because I know even in the
They do,
fire trucks, we have to do 2
specialized
years ahead of time, and we already are trying to figure out how to get that money.
I wanna lock in a number
Yeah,
where I know I can budget for it, okay? And then all of a sudden, I don't want it to have not locked in, and then he says, oh man, you're 25,000 more. Now, what do I do now? I'm even further behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why, if you tell me to cut the budget, I'm not probably going to cut those capital need items, because I know what will happen down the road. I'm surprised Rick Canada, they didn't fund the CIP balance, no wake signs, additional no wake signs. Would have been a good idea. But-
Ideally too, you put this money aside and then you know this money is locked, you're not gonna need it for 2 years. So you can put it in some sort of tool, investment tool. You may not make an obscene amount of money, but you're gonna make more than if it was sitting in your checking account. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can
a really
kind of
good
put it aside and hope you grow it a little bit.
Yeah, where do we put it, in Michigan class or in a long term?
You get a
We just got it.
you know what I mean? So,
I want to give Aaron an opportunity to talk on his budget. Aaron, did I miss anything, or do you something you want to comment on or offer?
No, sir, you're nailing it. Appreciate it.
Questions there?
they're excited about their new truck. They got
Yeah.
it today. Yeah.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
So engineering, I talked about that. It is what it is. I'll do what I can with it. Street lighting and those, guys, there's no control over those costs. Whatever they charge us to turn the street lights on, you gotta pay the bill. Rubbish, it is what it is. Watershed council, the same. Safety program, that's basically Aaron's, I probably just put it back into his budget, but it's, you know, it's
Separated
minimal.
out. Yep.
Planning, I talked to you about, you'll see a little bit in there, 3,000 for conferences and trainings. Zoning, you'll see $3,000 there. It's probably not enough, but it's a start. Recreational park facilities, you'll see a couple of tools in there, weed width blowers and stuff, what, you know, he spreads it out amongst different budgets. The big thing is, you see the porta potties. You know what, we try to, it's a cost that's not going down, guys. It's just gonna continue to rise. I actually think that's a pretty good price for what we get. I was kinda surprised it didn't go up more than that. You see at the bottom, the purchase of the new mower, down below there.
For the porta potties, would we save money in the long term by making those established small bathrooms?
I don't think so, only because I'm pricing out small bathrooms now as a set prefabs
Yeah,
for the Marina Park
right.
and for the Guy Center, and I'm getting severe sticker shock, like,
And we have
oh
a
my
lot of
God.
vandalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
figured the porta potties are cheaper with the
We're-
vandalism, but,
we're changing over, we have plans to change over what we have currently to what we call prison outwear. We're gonna put stainless steel sinks, stainless steel port, everything's gonna be type of indestructible type of plumbing in there. That's our process as we go forward and work in some of these areas, so we get away from hopefully some of the.
And the public bathrooms, not the porta potties.
No, not the porta potties.
But then in the wintertime, we still have them because the other ones are closed. So you still have some of that cost anyway.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's an inherent.
Yeah.
Every community has, tourism that has
Yeah.
Yeah.
the cost of business.
It's not $80. The three companies that broke it down.
It was $80 different.
Yeah.
And you get good service in the one you selected,
Yeah.
and that's who
Yeah.
you're happy with? That's worth it.
There you go, absolutely.
So, library and museum, you see we get a little back from the library for cleaning. Historical commission, you see a little bit of money there for the grant, it's not
Back to
enough.
the library real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
We may want to look at the library contract with the county. I think the last one I have is from 2007.
Wow.
And it's just kind of like an ongoing, if they're not happy, they can contact us about the agreement, we can contact them. But I just wanted to put that out
I
there
didn't
while I
know
was
that.
thinking
Thank you.
about
It's
it.
From where, 2007?
Yeah, there are some things in the contract for years have not been billed for reimbursement that are in the contract that I would like to start billing them for.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
Like
Absolutely.
plowing the,
Grass.
cutting the grass, plowing doing the snow removal, the
Yeah.
salt. We get reimbursement for cleaning, the phones, like those sort of things. But since we're gonna start tracking hours and equipment for MDOT now, it's
Yeah.
going to be easy to track it also for the library. So.
It'd be amazing if that worked out to be a 35% increase.
Is the library our,
But that just came up today, and I didn't have a chance to tell you, but I was
No,
like, I
it's-
really
I'm
wanna
glad you
look,
got it.
I really
You know,
wanna look at that and see, you know,
I'd be
I
happy to
don't
do
wanna
that
just
news.
bill them, saying, oh, we're gonna start billing this from now on.
No,
It
but-
is a contract, but we do need to have a discussion about getting reimbursed for our costs.
Yep.
but isn't the library our building?
It is.
And
And
we-
that contract basically says we're responsible for anything with that building.
Is there a water meter?
Yeah.
Well, there is, but we're not charging them a bill for meter, and that was one of my things on my list, that, like, we should be asking them for reimbursement for their water costs, you
Yep.
know? So, it's give and take, it's a partnership, the library's a great place, a good program,
Yeah,
so we
but-
don't wanna, but we do need to make sure we're doing our due diligence.
But in the same token,
Yes.
we charge the fire authority for water.
Correct.
And
Right.
we're charging ourselves 50% of that. It almost would
Right.
seem smart to not do that and work out an arrangement,
Yeah.
so, you know what I'm saying? I don't understand why that's in place.
Right.
It's one of the things
Yeah.
I'm way in the background, I say, why are we doing this? And it doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Right,
but-
so, yeah,
We have a lot of contracts like that.
yeah. So something to look at.
Okay, so museum, historical, really nothing there, we're at tab 2. Danger Street Fund, we're really gonna roll now, 53,736. You see revenue and expenditures, a lot of that's in and out. I don't know any other way really to explain that. There's
Yeah,
not-
that's revenue coming in, Major Street, the revenue, the expenditures going out, 50% of the Major Street revenue we receive from the state, we are allowed to allocate it to local streets, because we have more local streets that we take care of. We do that monthly. When the
Yeah.
money comes in from the state, we move it to local streets. Other than wages and a little bit of, you know, there hasn't been much movement in streets lately, but I know there's some plans going forward since roads are.
If you look under drain, storm, and sewers, you'll see that interfund transfer, saving for a back truck, you'll see Katie, you'll start seeing those breakouts
Yep.
in terms of what we were talking about previously. Go to the next page, routine maintenance, you'll see another interfund transfer for the backhoe. That's based on those percentages at the front of the book. Bridge maintenance, that's a new one, right? That's from the contract.
Well, bridge maintenance has always been there as a cost, as an
But we should
expenditure.
have a revenue for it, right?
Yep, but we do have, our
15,000.
15,000 allocated from MDOT now to reimburse us for those costs, so.
Great.
And we got some barrels and things like that. So renewing the relationship has,
They gave us barricades and stuff.
did they bring them yet?
No,
No.
They're going to,
They're going to,
I
yeah.
talked to Chris the other day.
Yeah, and then he also mentioned, like, if the street light goes out, just call me directly, you know? So I think the relationship's important. It might just be $15,000, but
the relationship.
Better than
the
nothing.
relationship is important.
Yeah, very nice.
Ice and
Yeah,
snow,
that's
as you
good.
see, there's a couple interfund transfers there.
We talked about today, Aaron brought up, we don't really know how much salt's gonna cost us yet.
Yep.
And that's an ongoing thing. So it's really a guesstimate in here because we just don't know. It's a state,
You gotta gamble because you don't know how much snow you're getting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you, how much salt did you use this year? Any idea how many tons?
I want to say close to 300. It's a lot this year.
We had leftover from last
Yeah.
year, right?
Yep, and then we got our reserve delivered. Last year we had to purchase before we can put the order in for your next year's. But it's those inch and a half snow total that really kill us, especially with the lower bridge. You know, the ice up, like crazy, we get, that salt them a lot, it's just.
So that's a real guesstimate. We just don't
That's
know.
the business.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm over to non-motorized transportation, nothing there. Street cleaning, not a lot there. Local street fund recap, subtotal 93,445. This is the fund eventually that we will utilize to hopefully pave a couple streets out of here once we come up with some idea of costs involved in that. Obviously, we're not gonna run this thing dry or anything of that nature,
Right.
but we're gonna see what we can afford and what Katie's comfortable in terms of allowing us to spend out of there, and we'll match that against getting a biggest bang for the buck. I really don't think there's a need to go real in-depth in terms of transfers or anything, that kind of stuff. We've pretty much gone over that. Unless somebody has a question in regards to major or local street funds, we'll go to tab 3.
Any questions?
Water and sewer, see the revenues, let's flip the page. The yellow bar shows the percentages there.
This was just a calculation. I know every year you guys get a calculation sheet like this. We aren't proposing a change right now. We sat how long?
Long.
Looking at each other going, well, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could, and then Jason walked in and we're like, what do you, like, we finally just decided, like, we can't make an educated recommendation to you about a rate increase when we really don't know. You know, it's kind of like throwing a dart at a board and hoping it sticks.
We
Like,
had no data.
We had no data. We
way
like
to tell.
talked it. Oh, well, we'll do ready serve. We don't. We'll do that, you know. So we did initially do these calculations. I put in a 1%, just showing an increase. It's actually not in the budget. To just give you an idea of what a 1% increase does to our revenues. And then this bottom bar down here, roughly what 1% increase would do to water usage and sewer usage for a quarter on a bill.
But that doesn't take care of ready to serve.
But there's no ready to serve in this. But just so you had some data to look at. But we really think the rate study's where we're gonna get most of our information.
Then you flip the next page. I just, again, attempt to kill the myth that Marine City has the highest water and sewer rates out of anybody. That's a myth. That's
Yeah.
not true. Call around your neighbors in Carterville, Algonac, East China, Port Huron, Marysville. We do not have the highest water and sewer rates.
How much is this information getting out to the public right now?
All of this will be available. to the
Oh,
public.
so when this packet goes out there, this is not gonna, I mean, people aren't gonna find this buried in this packet. They're not
Well,
gonna-
this is being played, so it'll be,
Right.
Yeah, there's a
So-
budget available. I mean, I threw this together as like,
Yeah.
you know, just to give an idea,
You could put
know,
it as something on the webpage.
Yeah.
Right,
Like a
as
separate
some sort
tab
of special,
attachment.
one of the red tabs that,
Yeah.
alerts that we have up, that pop up and notices, something like this, I mean, because this is, when we come to this conversation about water, this is gonna be our biggest sticking point, the
Yep.
public does not understand, they do not understand the other community rates, when we say it up here, they're not going to believe us. They need to see this data, and they need it in a place where they're going to be able to find it accessible.
The only thing I would recommend is prior to us putting it up,
Make
let's
sure it's
make sure that
correct,
the
yeah.
information
Yeah.
is correct and factual, and that we put it up when we have our rates determined, and then see how they match inside that
Yeah.
arena. You put it up now, then you go to
Yep.
change the rates, you have more of an argument.
Yeah. What I did is I contacted a friend in each jurisdiction and asked for their water bill.
I mean, it's wonderful.
That's
helpful.
how we, it's interesting to look at,
Yeah.
not everybody bills the same. It's very hard to compare.
Yeah.
Some do ready to serve as a usage charge per thousand. Some do a flat fee per bill, per quarter. Some have, a flat fee for water, meter replacement. Some don't do any. So, we have administrative fees, some don't, but they necessarily doesn't mean they don't have an administrative fee. It just might be lumped in with like their ready to serve fee or their, other sort of things they're billing. One of the interesting things I learned this week from Joe at the Rural Water is they really look at, he said not a lot of communities do this, but it's really the right way to look at it. You need to look at your variable expenses and your fixed expenses. And that is really how you should be looking at how you charge. What are the fixed expenses we have? And those should really be like you're ready to serve. It doesn't necessarily mean capital. It could be wages if they're fixed. It could be benefits, so it's not necessarily the category of your expense, it's the type of expense it is. Is it variable, is it moving, is it not? But it's really hard looking at the bills. I kept having to make an extra line because I'm like, nobody bills the same. It's different. I mean, we have 5 communities here and they're all different.
Well, isn't it that the state says that you only can charge what it costs you to make the water?
A commodity rate,
Right.
yes. I mean, it's an enterprise fund, so it should not make.
You can't make money.
revenue.
You can't make revenue.
Can't make money,
Right,
you know?
Right, you have to
Yeah.
cover your costs.
And what about, is any of this ever going to look at, we did the study for about us combining with East China. Is there any more talk on that, of what that would do to the rates?
Because it would, started looking for that study today.
It's a
because
two-book.
we needed the model out of it in order to determine the flow from East China to us into our tower and then us to Cotterville during this water project. So we can't find the model that was used, so we're asking East China if they can provide it. But
Okay.
I just started reading that study report today, and, it's interesting, and I read the newspaper article on it. There didn't seem to be, back in 2021, a lot of interest in any of the communities moving towards that type of agreement. It didn't really state in the newspaper article why or why not. It offered reasons why we should, but then it said, hey, look, when you do this, there's no redundancy, then you're all under one system, and, so it didn't look like there was an outcome as to, are we gonna do this, is there further studies, or what each community thought. At least I didn't see it, unless you're familiar with that.
One of the big things is, I don't know if you guys remember when they had that huge break up out of Huron? That water is fed from, it goes all the way to Detroit. So all those people were affected. So if East China has an issue, St. Clair has an issue, Algonac has an issue, we still have water. We're always gonna have our own,
Our own plant.
Yeah.
we're always,
And the underground infrastructure don't go away just because you share plants
and we're
with
getting
somebody.
30 or 40%, I'm not sure of it. None of our water mains are gonna be new, so, and the infrastructure that the water plant's going to be new, so being on our own little unit, if you will, is a lot than relying on.
Well, it solved a lot of problems that were in the report by upgrading everything that we had, too. Because at that point, when they were doing that, none of this was available. So that's the only reason why we were looking at it, was because everything was so old, and they had a newer plant. So,
Then capacity, what does capacity look like when you throw 3 or 2 communities into one plant?
well, they have a water authority up there, so what is it, China, East China? Is it just the 2?
It's 3, I don't know.
Yeah.
St. Clair Township.
Maybe St. Clair Township. Yeah, 'cause they have a water authority.
I mean, it's something I could reapproach if, but I mean, you're talking,
Yeah.
the federal government would have to fund something like that. It's not something you could throw on the taxpayers, the communities. It would have to be the federal government system.
I know, they always told us though, like, oh, if you combine, you could get everybody's water rate down because it's more users in one plant and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we've heard that story, I don't know how many times too, so. But there's a lot of other conditions that impact it. It's not just that simple.
Okay, the next item I'd like to cover is that SRF debt collection. I talked about that. I'm not gonna go in depth. I think you understand the concept that I'm explaining there, about the $1.20. We'll go back over that at another date after we get a chance to look back through this. We planted the seed in regards to the ideas on that. Sewer fund recap, the ending balance is green, $69,910. Katie, explain the restricted funds and how that works, please.
Yeah, so the usage charge is what we use towards our costs, and then any restricted funds that come in, for like ready to serve, we have to restrict those for those specific items. So you'll see they come in as revenue and then they're pulled out, and then we put them to the side for use on projects or something we need. We're gonna talk about this when the rate study comes and but if you look at, we're doing some minimal expenses here. So we have saving for the back truck, the backhoe, the exterior tanks and influent have to be painted, and painting's required. He has to do some of that for 2,000. Some other repairs with the equipment at the wastewater treatment plant at about 20,000. Painting and miscellaneous repairs at the pump stations about 5,000. 15,000 for a check valve, 35,000 for a pump. We got clarification today, it's not pump 2, it's pump 4, so we can change that. And then 150,000 that we're unsure of for the phase 2 and 3 saw. That all equals about 227,000 in expenses, and we are only bringing in 184,400 in ready to serve. So these are like basic.
So you see what the issue will be with ready to serve already.
We're not even bringing in what we're spending, and we aren't even like breaking cement on some of these. Where the expensive stuff is. So that's just something to think about.
In addition, you can see the 941,748 sewer funds. That's where I will probably direct some of the repairs for the sanitary collapses that we know we have in that fund. And maybe a portion that sanitary requires lining out of that fund, but I can't use all of it. I can only use a portion of it, but there's where I would go for sanitary in terms of lining or collapse replacement of pipe.
Yeah.
So that's all as ongoing. The information's back. We know how much we have. We're getting ready to put it into a format to give the contractor to give me a price, and they're gonna say, we want 20,000 lineal feet of pipeline, I want, 4 collapsed sections of, pipe replaced, I want this, that. Then there's the storm side, but that's the account I plan on attacking, if you will, in terms of helping pay for those stuff, so we get that repaired, so I get the street put back in, and then we move on. Another thing I want to note is that we now have, the saw is only in phase 1 and 2. Steve Patterson, who's from Michigan Pipe, was kind enough to include the phase 2 into phase 1 at no extra cost.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, I expected I was gonna have another 30,000 just for phase 2, and then I knew the big part of the saw was gonna be phase 3, which is the rest of the city between the 2 rivers. So that helped us a little bit in terms of how we're looking at this, and I'll have a price from him on phase 2, the other side of the city here, for the next month or 2.
One thing to note, 900, just under $1 million in the ready to serve fund. It seems like a lot. That took years to get that balance there. I mean, there hasn't been money spent out of this fund in any lump sum in
But I don't understand.
probably 10 or 15, you know what I mean?
Why wasn't that done, though?
So-
Why didn't they take care of some capital needs at the sewer out of that fund? That's what it was for.
Right.
We were always told there was no problem. We don't know.
But that money can be gone like quick, So we don't have another 10 years to save another $1 million to do
Yeah.
sewer upgrades, so just
So-
something to think about.
I'm not gonna walk through the rest of the sewer and water, if you will. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I just wanna flip to, one page here, you go back a couple. The water fund recap, it's got some red on it. That's the easiest way to find it. And Katie, go back through the restrict fund, and we're in the negative 88,343.
Yeah, so also, this sheet could be not as advertised, I guess. We don't receive $13 million in water revenue every year. This is because we have the revenues coming in from the grant for the project. So those are in there, and then you see the expenditures come right back out, because the money's coming in and it's going right back out. So we had about 305,000 in the green between revenues and expenditures, but once you restrict those funds out that we have to restrict, we're actually in the red as far as operating costs in water. We're gonna use some, ready to serve money to do a few things, save for the backhoe, the back truck. But again, those money collected for those bond payments, those loan payments, we can't, that money has to be put aside for them, ready to service, we put aside for that. And here we are, so
This is where that $1.20
could help.
could really help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normally, in previous budget years, water and sewer are they are their own fund. We separated them out here to try and see where we could pinpoint where the problem was, per se. If I would have thrown these all together,
It did.
the sewer fund was positive about
88,000.
69,000, and, the water fund is short 88. You throw them together, we're only short about 16 grand. That doesn't seem so bad,
But it doesn't give you
but
an
it
actual
doesn't give you a
picture.
clear picture of what
Yeah.
is really happening.
Yep.
So that's why we did it this way. We are gonna still be short, so in order to pass a budget, we are going to have to use
Fund balance.
fund balance of about 19,000 from one of them to cover that cost. So, until we get the rate study and can really dive into how we wanna approach this in the next 2, 5, 10 years.
As you get through the water department revenues, and then general administrative water, and you crawl through the pages, I just want to tell you, there's a couple things coming. Hydro Corp contract signed, we're mandated to do, that's coming. You're gonna see a significant line item for main breaks, repairs while project ongoing day to day. So, we had no idea of how many water breaks we're gonna have. We had, the day the project started, we had 2 or 3 in one section, and they charged us almost $25,000 to fix that. We got that bill knocked down to $19,000, then we got the state to include it in the plan, so we didn't have to pay it.
Good.
So it's included in the thing, in the change order. But we instituted a thing through Aaron that will fix the water main breaks now. We don't want you guys fixing, it. Our guys can do it faster and better.
Yep.
And not have 12 guys standing around. Our 4 guys can get in there and get it done.
Yeah.
So, but we have no idea how many we're gonna have. And then we're also gonna be doing sanitary and storm. So Aaron had to put a place mark in there as an idea. Now, could I cut $10,000 or $20,000 out of it? It could, but if you look at the activity for 24, 25, it was 55.5.
That's pretty much since
That's pretty-
January.
Yeah, so if you look at it, probably right in line.
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to cut that, even though I think it'll get better if we don't have as hard of a winter, but if we go up and down, we're gonna burn through $60,000 quick. So we left it in there. In addition, if you look through some of the other stuff, you'll see some other minor line item changes. But that's the one I wanted to call your attention when you look at it and say, man, why is that place mark so out of, that's the reason why.
Our biggest costs are pretty much our contractual costs to run our water plant and our wastewater treatment plant. It's a big number. It's over
Yeah.
600,000 a year, so, but it has to be done, so those are the big numbers.
Any questions, water, sewer? I want to stop here. I made a mistake. I didn't ask Chief Hesworth to comment on the police budget. And I should have. And I feel bad about it, and I can feel him back there over my shoulder.
He's going,
Jim, I apologize to you, I shouldn't have done that. Did you have any comments you wanted to make on the police budget, or?
Can we comment on the SRO contract?
Sure.
So noticing through this process that the contract was up for renewal starting September of this school year. So it would continue to the end of the school year, and then we have to reevaluate for the start of next school year. So when I sat down with City Manager Reeves and we started discussing it, we discussed the initial fee of the $35,000 over the last 3 years that the school district paid. He said that number has to be increased because of everything else that's being increased, meaning uniforms and equipment and wages, et cetera. So notification was sent to the school weeks ago? Maybe? Months ago. To no avail. So we've heard nothing back from the school to try to negotiate that. So if they negotiate, I think we started in the email that was sent to school about 61,000, somewhere there that would be their portion to pay. So I know that 900,000 is a little high, but if we can get that 60,000 for that contract, that would kind of be money in, money out. So hopefully, he's well loved over there. He does a fantastic job over there, and hopefully they can continue that relationship. But there's no guarantees with that. We don't know where they're at. So try to keep everything else low for you, and do the best I can.
Kids love him.
Yeah, kids love him over there. He does a great job.
And his contracts are what they are. They were, negotiated and agreed on, and they are what they are.
35,000, even at the time it was negotiated, wasn't half the wages. So I don't know how they came up with that number. 61.9 is half, and it doesn't include peripherals like cars and stuff. It was just wages and fringes. So I'm willing to take more than 50% on. If we negotiate, I'll come down a little bit. But I can't come down to $35,000.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
too
It's
low.
not fair to his budget or anything else, right?
Yeah.
So they gotta pay something reasonable.
And they just, no response
No,
whatsoever.
I'm planning on attending the board meeting.
They don't
Okay.
respond on that.
no, multiple issues, that's not the only one, so.
Yeah.
And multiple
I don't
tests.
understand it.
Uh,
Yeah.
So
that-
that's what I really had to talk about. If there's anything else, if you guys have any questions, I'm ready to answer them here.
Those wages are still in the budget, even though we didn't account for
Yeah,
revenue.
They should remain in the
Yeah,
budget. I think-
because we just don't know.
But structurally, if they don't renew the contract, that'll just give me 2 afternoon cars. I'll be full staff for the road. I'll have a day car, an afternoon car, and a midnight car, 7 days a week. Where now during school year, he's Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day over there, and my afternoon car is only half the time. So if they don't renew it, he'll go back to the road full time, and we'll have a afternoon car 7 days a week.
But then we provide the level services.
Yep.
Well, they're asking for renewal,
I'm sorry,
the schools,
are they?
yeah.
Well, we
They're gonna have an
our
election,
contract is
right?
up. Yes, our contract is
Yeah.
done at the end of the school year.
No, they are not having an election.
What?
They are not having an election.
No?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So, the school district does have a security director, but he spent most of his time out in St. Clair, just to kind of leave us alone with our resource officer who goes from the high school to the middle school and a couple times a week over to Bell River Elementary. So he's all over the place, well worth the funding. I know the parents love him, I know the students love him, and it'd be well worth it, but again, we're kind of at a limbo here.
Yeah.
So if we move on, thanks, Jim, sorry about that.
My pleasure, sir. Anyway.
Number 4, cemetery, you notice the transfer, in fund balance, 26,090. That's going to continue to go up as we go on.
These revenues are, again, just averages. We don't know how many burials or foundations or,
The rest of these budget lines, drug law enforcement, all these are minimal. You'll see absolutely zero change in brownfield redevelopment.
Sorry, real quick. The drug law enforcement, there was, the rifles for the police budget were moved under a drug asset line, something like this?
Well, we can use these funds for that, correct?
Correct, we can.
Yeah, so we have like $5,724 available that I could do as a transfer in to clear this fund out. Do you ever recoup any of this money? Like, how do you?
So, years ago, under the last chief, we had actually a part-time officer who did all narcotic stuff.
I see.
That was when this forfeiture account really was significant and
Okay.
increased. So over the years, we but we've taken some forfeitures in, but the forfeiture laws have changed and it's nearly impossible now to do a forfeiture. So,
At our level.
yeah, our level. It's been years since we put any money in there. Unbeknownst to me, I've always been looking at the wrong line item. I've always thought I had $1,000 in there. That's why I just kind of had left it alone. But they brought it to my attention and said, you've got almost 5,800 in there. Fine, perfect, I'll use that then for patrol rifles.
So is that line item, the drug asset line that you're talking about, is that different than the drug law enforcement fund
No,
recap?
that's the same.
It's- okay.
So
It's
the
pointing to
only
this.
difference you'll see when we bring it back is there'll be an expenditure line
Great.
for the 5,724 or 5,000, whatever we decide. We have to keep it open. I think we have to have this fund available just in case, but,
And those funds, Commissioner O'Brien, can only be used for certain
Right.
yeah,
purposes. Limited array of purposes.
yeah.
So the statement here is that rifles are for drug enforcement.
No, I want to clear that up. You should have police officers that have jurisdictions with, I don't want to say high-value targets, but schools, large commercial
Right.
centers, shopping. You should have patrol rifles in your vehicles to
Yeah.
respond to those type of things. And when you have schools especially, that's an integral tool that an officer should have, since they're the first response to that type of thing, so.
And the problem that I've run into is because I have a couple part-timers, I can't have them sharing a rifle because when you take the rifle and you take the sight, you sight it in, like Mr. Davis would sight it into his eye.
Sure.
I take it from him, it might not be sighted into me, and I can't have that liability.
Yep.
So one of those firearms will be for my new hire, and one will be for another part-timer.
Thank you.
So you'll see then, when we come back with the changes, there'll be an expenditure line here, what we decide to spend, and then there'll be a transfer in on the general fund side, and it will reduce our expenses there by that amount.
I want to just jump over to the capital projects fund recap, just so you understand. You'll see 225,800 in red. Katie, you want to explain that real quick?
Well, it should be green, so that's my error. Yeah, it should be green. This is just the money we have been saving and all those, that we talked about, the allocations, the 15,000, the 3750, all that money coming into here. That's all this is. Those revenues aren't new, those are just money coming from the other funds.
That's the point I was
To
wanting.
save.
Those aren't, that isn't a savings spot, that's where they came,
Yeah.
that's where they're collected.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where reflected. We act, like I said, we don't have any money sitting in that fund now, once that truck got bought, so.
And I think that's it. We'll get to tab 5, is the proposed fee schedule. We ask you to adopt that. One of the things that this budget does, along with the proposed personnel policies, along with the fee schedule will now match the charter and now match the ordinances. So the ordinance won't say one fee, the fee schedule say another. They'll all be in conjunction with each other. So you can't go and say, well, hey, in the past we've said, well, your ordinance says we only have to pay this, but your fee schedule says this, so which one's right?
Yeah. And one thing, I always notice these inspection fees, but I've noticed a lot of times things aren't getting inspected. At least that's what I hear.
Well,
So-
also some of these inspection fees, so there's a lot of changes in those I believe this year. Michelle did a really good job of going through and auditing these and seeing, when we had our audit done last year, there were discrepancies in what the fee schedule said compared to, the property maintenance code compared to what we were charging. So we're trying to really hone in on the fact that we can't arbitrarily decide You know, and I don't think that was happening, but if the system wasn't right, 'cause this, when, and maybe this is a good thing to explain, when somebody's getting a permit, whether it be building, mechanical, electrical, or plumbing, they pay by like item on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing side. So if they're doing 10 circuits, they pay for 10 circuits. If they're doing, you know, a furnace, they have all these separate line items. Well, if they're not correct in the system, you know, the BSNA system, and not matching the application, but then also not matching what we're allowed to charge in property maintenance code. So she went through and made sure they were all correct. Because we did get hit on that in the audit where they were like, why were you charging this much? Well, it was on the sheet, but it wasn't in the system right, or it was in the system right, not on the sheet, but then they hadn't been updated from the code, so it was just kind of a cleanup situation on there.
Okay.
For those.
So, questions for us that we can answer. And then I've got a couple things for you to finish.
I've been asking my questions as we go. I didn't say that.
And I know,
And you may not have, hey, we're available all week long, as long as it takes. We're, like you said, we'll be changing this as it goes, because new information comes in, updated information. There's stuff that's not in the budget. I told you earlier that I know it's gotta be fixed. There's a SCADA instrument requirement.
We
for-
also have to put tablets in there for the meter reading.
Yep, $16,495 for that. I mean, there's stuff I know that's not in there, but, you know, at this point, what do I do with that? You know, I know I'm gonna have to spend the money, but to put it in the budget and inflate it again when it's already in the red, it just doesn't seem to make sense. If you don't have any questions, here's what I would propose you to consider. Give you an opportunity, go back over the books, go back over, ask any questions. Do you foresee the need for a second additional budget workshop on the night of the 17th prior to your board meeting? Or do you think this initial one budget meeting will be enough in terms of this process and we can answer your questions? And that's the first question. The second question goes with, it is proposed that we bring this budget to you in this format at the May 15th meeting. I will need direction from you in terms of how you would like me to balance this budget and how you'd like us to go forward with that. I am concerned that we can balance a budget, we can cut the budget, but it may cost you money elsewhere, and it will inhibit your ability to do certain things.
There's a cause and effect.
There's
to
a cause and
every-
effect,
yeah.
thank you, that's a perfect
Yeah.
word, there's a cause and effect. We have made arrangements, and we think that we can fund this budget out of fund balance, including the items that we listed under capital, and then deal with the rest of the issues as we obtain the other CIP plans. So what you have coming is you'll get a report, we have this much taken care of at the water plant. The CIP on the wastewater treatment plant will be presented to us, and we'll know what those are. The facilities assessment, the 9 buildings, will come in a couple months. We'll have an idea where that is. I don't foresee an immediate need to spend a lot of money out of that one. Okay, I don't see it, but I think the linchpin in all this is the wastewater treatment plant, I'll be honest with you. That's the one that worries me. And then you'll get an internal one from the department heads that I'm gonna hand out to them next week at a meeting that's gonna detail non-facility, cars, heavy equipment, specialized items, Jim's IT server, specialized things of that. Something that we can put together, so I know, all right, we gotta start planning for a police car in 3 years or 2 years. He needs a backhoe, he needs a salt truck, that's not covered in any of these other CIPs, that one, and then we merge it all together and say, okay, board, I need a new salt truck in the next 12 to 15 years. I need another pickup in 5 years. Jim needs 2 police cars. And I'd like to get to the point that we don't buy 2 at the same time, but we're not buying multiple vehicles in 1 year. That we are able to plan and budget for them. So if I buy a car this year, I'll buy the next one in a year and a half. And then you know what I'm saying? I'd like to get to that point where I can give you the breathing room and we can do that.
And ideally, this full CIP plan would be reviewed a few months prior to budget. So that, like the budget, it's a guideline. You could have something that's next on the list and something that's 10th on the list, jumps above it, and that's okay. It's a rotating working piece. But when you're creating a budget, it's really hard to create one without.
We're guessing.
We're guessing, right? So we did better this year. We have some ideas. We have, like Aaron's in place. He has more of a future outlook on we're gonna need this. Same thing with Jim. We kind of have that, but that's how that would work. You would review your CIP plan every year, probably like March or April, even sooner possibly, and decide for the year what CIP items you're gonna take on or save for. So I just wanted to kind of, the timeline on that, like explain that a little bit.
So that's the process that I have in mind. This won't all easily be put together in one clean package, what I would usually do in a budget year, because we haven't been able to do that.
Right.
Get through the budget, let's adopt a budget within reason here. If you want some cuts, I'll make some cuts. If you want me to 100 from, I can do that. I'll get it balanced, present it to you on the 15th. You adopt, we get the rest of the report information in. Next thing you tackle is water and sewer rates. With that in, then we bring the CIPs and we lay them all out and say, okay, folks, how do you want to divide this up? How do you want to attack the issue? And then how do we prioritize, right? Okay, so worst here, and worst here. And then as Katie says, when we get these, we have the ability to finagle them. You can, okay, I'm gonna need another 2 years out of this truck, I can get it, but I need this year. You just swap a little bit.
That's a plan.
But also understand, we're gonna have emergencies. We're gonna have things that come up that are gonna throw a wrench into this. Just look at this past year, right? I mean,
Past 6 months.
the last 6 months, ever since that guy came here and just caused all these issues.
No,
But there are a few
you
things-
found all these issues.
Yeah. No,
But
there
you didn't
are
cause them.
emergencies that would not have been an emergency if there would have been a proper CIP plan.
Yes.
And a plan in place.
And I
We would have
think-
caught it before that.
That's one of the important pieces of this budget that you presented to us, is that forward planning. The forward planning on this,
Get into
because I feel that if we don't do these things now, that we're just gonna create the same cycle over again.
I don't know how you go forward, to be honest with you, long term, until we get this under control. To be very candid with you. I don't know how, we're at the last kick of the can down the road, guys. It's gotta get adopted and a plan put in.
Yes.
Well, the plans, we can put a plan around, but you gotta have a plan.
And this isn't
Otherwise-
like something that, like, has been the last 2, 3, 5, this is a 30, like, a 60-year, 40, 50, 60-year problem in the,
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, it's bottlenecked. You're at a point now
Yeah.
where you
You guys are stuck.
you're stuck with it.
Yeah,
You can't
this
take
is
it
it.
down the road anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Only Lisa will be on the board by then.
Yeah. I've seen him kick the can all these years, yeah.
Yeah, and knowing that, we've got some changes coming up when we get the water, right, it's the studies come in and the changes, and then this is obviously a briefing document, the budget document and that. I know I would be supportive of using general fund at this time to try to maintain and keep these things in here. I think everything's important, from the equipment to the employees, additional things for the employees in here, the training, the pay, equipment, just all these things that this brings, these new ideas and these new supplements. I'm supportive of this.
I have to agree with that. I think if we start chopping now, you're gonna lose services and you're gonna pay dearly 2, 3, 5 years from now because we try and save a little bit now. I think you take the money out of the general fund to make up the difference, and then we get our act together with the rate study and the capital improvement plans and get a really good foundation for moving forward.
Yeah.
I thought this was gonna be a hard fight.
No,
I mean, it makes sense.
we don't have a whole lot of choices anymore. He's right.
I didn't mean to
Okay,
put you in that
we're-
position, but
No.
that's actually what I want to tell you. You don't have a lot of choices.
But you didn't put us in that position. This is just years and years and years of neglect that,
Right, and we're paying for it now.
yeah. So eventually, we got to do it. It's that, or the whole city's just going to keep crumbling, and
And I know,
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself, but I think I can speak. It's really hard as a department head to do any planning, or I mean, I can imagine being in
Yeah.
Ann's position and needing to do these infrastructure changes, or needing a truck, or needing tools to do their job and not having them,
Yeah.
and it never being planned for.
Yeah.
That is very hard on a day-to-day basis when there's no clear direction
yeah.
on where we're going, you know,
Yes.
with a clear direction, a clear plan, and everybody on the same page, it's like, it will start rolling,
And,
you know?
and that's kind of what the fire authority did years ago when we first started that. It's been 15 years, I think, we've had the fire authority. But that's what the fire authority did. They put every little bit, we told all the townships, whatever is left at the end of the year, which isn't much, we put in an account. We kept putting it away and putting it away. And then for years, we bought equipment and we did all this stuff without having to raise the rates. Now we're getting into more issues, but the building, the roof's done, everything's been replaced inside, all the trucks are done. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it has worked. It has worked very, very well. It's only recently that have we had to increase any rates.
That's right, that set aside has been planned for.
Yes, it really made a difference to put that aside, and then we could get what we needed to when we.
I know Mike and I were talking, and we were talking the budget, and I think I said, there's two choices here. You increase revenues or reduce expenses.
All there is.
That's the choices here.
Well, that's true.
Right? Our revenues are very minimal, you can't raise taxes, you're limited on that, your hands are tied on that.
Yeah.
Without more development, you don't get more money from the state. Who knows where that's coming? Expenses are just going up. I mean, the cost for processed chemicals alone, we've been seeing the bills come in for processing the water and the sewer. I mean, I've been here almost 2 years, and they've probably gone up 30, 35, 40%. I mean, it's,
Well, the vehicles alone have gone sky high. I mean, stuff like that pumper, over $200,000 for a mini pumper. I mean, we were paying $300,000 for a little, about $380, I think, for an engine a couple years ago. Now that engine is like almost $1 million. It's within a couple years, just a couple years.
so when we get to the point to talk about water sewer rates, the last thing we want to do is pass the cost on, but you
But
have
that
to.
fund is different.
Yeah, you have to,
We have no choice on.
yeah, so.
All right, so I think if we get the motion tonight to approve this as presented, determining how we're going to do the additional funds, then determining if we're going to use general fund balance to, as of now, to cover that balance. Noting that it would be then re-looked at, reopened for when we get the water rate study back. I think if we did that, and if that passed, then we could then address canceling the meeting on the 17th.
I don't think we can approve the budget today without a public.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, to move it to the 15th.
Yes, yeah.
With the existing.
Moving it to the 15th for the
Yes.
public hearing,
Perfect.
and then
It's not
that,
a voice vote,
yeah.
approve moving forward.
yeah, approve it moving forward to the public hearing on May 15th,
I-
with those conditions to it.
I move we approve moving forward to the 15th.
Support.
Yep.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes.
Commissioner Rourke?
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosch?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. So what we'll do is, any changes we'll forward to you. We'll come up with the final numbers so you know exactly what money we're transferring, what we're doing. You'll get that budget for the 15th with the plan in place, and it'll be documented so the citizens can see we're adopting the budget on the 15th. This is when we expect CIPs to come in. This is when we project the water rate study to be done. This is when we project the presentation for the water rate studies. This is when we project a discussion and vote on that.
And
Fair enough?
any
Okay.
changes from here, I'll make sure we list them out so you know exactly what changed between now and then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then next, moving to closed session. We have the city manager request for closed session under MCL 15.268A. City Commission will now enter into closed session per city manager request. May or may not be action taken upon returning to open session. I need a motion to enter into closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Hey, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Yes.
Commissioner Rourke.
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosch.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.